Well, welcome everybody. So, my goodness, this is the 31st of March already, 2026, the very end of the first 3 months of the year. And we're really privileged to have Teresa Walding with us tonight. Teresa is not only your um, Austin area chapter of the Holistic Nurses co leader, but she is someone who just recently spoke to the
California.
California Association of Nurse
Yeah.
Practitioners.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
yeah, so we're going to get to hear some of what she shared with them. So I'm just going to read a little bit about Teresa. Teresa's an international thought leader and a visionary pioneer in nursing and nurse coaching. With decades of experience and the insight of the three principles, she co founded Advancing Nurse Coaching to lead a new holistic path to healthcare. Through coaching, education, and mentoring, she helps nurses reconnect with their wisdom, reduce their stress, and create meaningful impact in and beyond patient care. Her work inspires nurses to lead with clarity, care with presence, and live with purpose. Together, Lynn McCright and Teresa Walding are bringing new light and life to ourselves and our profession. So I'll just make a couple of announcements, which is one that the national meeting is going to be held in Niagara Falls this year, and what a wonderful place. It was actually held there in 2018 as well. It's a bit of a long conference. They have the entire time, let's see here, from the 10th through the 14th. And so it's a long conference. But it's so fun to be in Niagara Falls because you can travel internationally just by taking a bus across the bridge, and there you are in Canada. And we did that last time we were there. We were actually the sponsors of the program for the tea, the international tea, and so we were really privileged to be there in 2018. Other announcements, Teresa?
I can't think of anything at the moment. That's the most upcoming. We have Nurses Day coming up in May.
Hey,
And
yeah.
usually AHNA puts out a little information for new membership during that week. So if you want to be a champion of holistic nursing, to go ahead and invite people into the association. They are growing. Their mission is always to grow the membership, but it doesn't grow without us actually asking people to come. So
True.
if we can remember that, hey, if we find people who really aspire to the holistic way of nursing, invite them in, invite them here. It doesn't matter where they live. And I think we become more global community. A lot of the association chapters are inviting other members into their meetings so we can meet each other. So I think that's a really good thing to do,
Yeah,
especially as
absolutely.
holistic nursing grows. So
Well, I did just last week get to enjoy two conferences. One was the Virtual Nursing Theory Conference, and you can see that on nurseology.net. They decided to change the word nursing to nurseology because they felt that it would have a clearer understanding of it being a scientific profession similar to psychology and sociology. And of course, we draw heavily from both of those fields. And then I also just this weekend attended the Global Association of Holistic Nursing. And that is something that Margaret Erickson, actually, it's Helen Erickson, her mother, has really put her heart into. It's kind of a parallel to the FAAN, the Fellowship, the American Association of Nurses. So it's specifically for holistic nurses, the Global GAHN, Global Academy of Holistic Nurses. And it was very interesting. We had three wonderful speakers, And it was kind of interesting. Somewhere along toward the end of the meeting, I heard, well, I guess this was the other meeting. Peggy Chen said, "You can be a nurse and work in a hospital, but if you want to do nursing, you may need to leave the hospital."
That's actually a really big statement.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely is huge.
Wow.
Well, Teresa, how would you like to begin?
Well, I think I'll just begin with Lynn and I presented at the California Nurse Practitioners Association conference, which was really quite wonderful. And it's funny, we prepared for a 10-minute speech because we thought we were on a panel, and we get there to find out it's an hour and 15 minutes. And we went, okay, we could do this. And so I had created a little flyer about the spectrum of resilience. And so we used that and spoke for the hour. We probably should have spoken a little bit longer, but we made it for a whole hour. I was pretty impressed. And I thought, you know what, this is really good to remember that no matter how we're showing up that day, it's all here for us. That resilience isn't always just a positive feeling. Resilience is when you keep doing what you need to do, that's the next obvious step for you. That's resilience. And a lot of times people think it's somewhere to go, something that you have to do to be resilient. And it's absolutely not true. And I think we forget that as human beings, if we're still alive, we're resilient, period. And so I'm going to share my screen and show you my little diagram. And then I just want to go through it, and it's open for conversation. And just for us to kind of have a place to um, begin to think about or see for yourself. I don't think this is new information to anyone, but I think it serves as a really good reminder that what we hear in the news isn't always the truth, and what we tell ourselves isn't always the truth. And so I created this little thing is how our state of mind actually shapes the job that we feel, the things that we feel in life, and that there's actually nothing wrong with us when we feel all the feelings. And most of us know that, especially as holistic nurses, that our natural resilience is when we have perspective, we have clarity, pressure doesn't feel as heavy when we just have that feeling of knowing what to do next. And we get that feeling of our energy and our purpose, and things look good and bright. And then literally the next day we can be in survival mode. We can say, you know, whatever you've been thinking about, often it starts after a long day of work, or maybe before you even go to work or start your day. There's sometimes a feeling of dread for some people, like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can keep doing this today. Well, what happens in survival mode, we activate our natural system that we all have, the fight or flight system, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal cascade, and we get all of these feelings, the tension, the urgency, um, the overwhelming feelings. And it literally gives us no time to think, because our body is like, just react, and go do something about it. And I think I used to think that I needed to do something to stop that feeling. And I realized as soon as my attention was on something else, suddenly I felt better. And the other thing that's happening in survival mode that most people don't know is that not only have we dumped all the sugar in our body, our blood pressure goes up, our body says move, most of us don't, but our IQ actually drops 12 points. We don't need to be doing any critical thinking when we're running from the tigers. The big problem with the survival mode in modern day is we can intellectually understand, nothing's really wrong around here. I can look around and be safe, wherever I am. But that internal urgency, where does that come from? And that's when we have to go back and look. What have we been thinking about prior to these feelings? So the next thing that we do is we start going, okay, so I know that nothing is wrong. So then we start doing that repetitive thinking like, okay, I got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. We might start with a little bit of self-criticism, like, why are you doing that? And those internal loops or those tracks in our brain just keep getting ingrained deeper and deeper because we're not separate from our thinking. And we can intellectually see this, and we could even judge ourselves for it. Like, why are you doing that? But it seems really hard in that situation for us to get out of that feeling. And if we wait, or if something takes our attention, or we become present to ourselves and say, okay, fine, this is where I'm at, then it kind of looks like mental clutter. Like, okay, so I'm having extra thinking. It's not as bad as it was. You might have some racing thoughts like you got to do something or be somewhere, talk to somebody. And it's harder for us in the mental clutter space to leave work at work or to leave stressful events alone in our thinking even after they're over. And right between here, between the mental noise and the clarity, there's often a moment, and I've noticed this because after I created this document, I was like, so what helps us make this shift from mental noise to clarity? And I realized there's a little feeling of like giving up, like I just can't do it anymore. I don't even know what to do right now. And in that lull is usually when we get clarity, whether we're driving or taking a shower or just decide not to give so much attention to that mental noise. And that's when our perspective returns and we're able to go, oh, now I know what I need to do. And it gives us that deep breath or that space to respond to our environment, to respond to the people in our life. And most of us know what that feels like. It's like that feeling of relief or the ability to take a deep breath. And that's when answers arrive that we didn't know were there. And then we come back to our natural resilience, our natural perspective of, oh, look, I had all of those thoughts and feelings inside of me, and they were all mine. And that's what breaks the loop, is this natural desire to reach homeostasis, to be able to look at ourselves and sometimes maybe even laugh at ourselves about how life works and how we can move in and around and through all of the ways of being and nothing is wrong. And to see the temporary nature of our thinking is a beautiful thing to notice. You know, if you can't think love and feel hate, and you can't feel hate and think love because they don't exist simultaneously. So when we become aware that we are the creator, we are the experiencer, we are the only one inside of our own mind experiencing life as it comes to us. And when we can see the mind at work, stress begins to decrease and we're able to engage back in our lives the way we would like to show up. Lynn, do you have anything to add? You're on mute.
So just go through the natural resilience again, please.
So our natural state is actually to have perspective and clarity. When we show up without trying to overthink or trying to do more or be okay when, and we just allow life to unfold in front of us as we are living it, we have a sense of ease, a sense of purpose, a sense of being in our lives instead of watching our lives. And for me, when the pressure lifts, I always have this little sense of like relief that just like, oh, I did it again, you know? And I think that's where we start thinking about just feeling better instead of trying to fix problems that probably we created, most of us. And it helps, I think, to realize that every time we show up and decide or choose to be our best self, that's when we find the most ease in our life. And I know we often talk about, some of these other states of mind or other states of being, because they're all here for us, but one is not better than the other. It's just an indicator of what you've been doing with your thinking when it shows up. You're on mute still.
I think about that just in regard to our, opportunity to experience the full dimension of life. Think about how boring it would be if all of us were in the same exact part of this spectrum, if we were in all of us, everyone in survival mode, or if we were all in mental noise, or if we were all in natural resilience. Wouldn't it be boring? It's like, there would be a sameness to it that would be so repetitive that we wouldn't even bother to get out of bed in the morning to find out what kind of a day it is. It
Right.
just, yeah, we embrace all of it. All feelings are okay and are accepted here.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling tension and urgency, you're own up. You're feeling tension and urgency. No problem. Everybody's going to have some days like that. But as we move toward the natural resilience, which is actually our home, we'll feel more of a lightness. And I love the way that people talk about humor and how just having a lighter sense of going through their day is so beneficial. They smile more. How
Hmm.
much does that cost us? A smile. Nothing. It's absolutely free. And yet, oh, Teresa, you've got that beautiful story. This is a good time to talk about the airport in Houston. Yeah, tell us about a child's smile.
I was in Houston and they were doing construction. So we had to go single file through this certain area in the airport. And of course, there was a ton of people, and we're all waiting to get through this little corner one at a time. And there's this little girl, she couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 years old, and she's dancing around. And I come around the corner to turn the corner, and she looks up at me and she smiles and she winked at me. And I was
Oh,
like, oh, little kids like that. It was like the angel that I needed. Just, I have never forgotten the look on her face, the wink, the smile, the dancing. And I was like, in the middle of all of this, it's child's play. And it made a complete difference of how I went through the rest of the airport. Um, and prior to that, I was in the mental noise, like, how am I going to get through here? Am I going to miss my airplane? The whole thing that goes with that. And after I saw her and she winked at me, I just had a feeling of lightheartedness. Now, where did that come from? Did it come from her? Or was it what I received in my own spirit of what that wink and smile meant to me? And it's totally changed my experience of the rest of that flight. And literally every time I see it, I feel a little heartwarmed about seeing her. And probably now she's probably 20 years old because it's been a long time ago. And We just don't know how interconnected we are and how much our environment doesn't always matter. It's I know I talk to my sister quite a lot, and she's like, but it does matter what other people say and what other people do. And I said, I know, but you can't be responsible for how someone else is thinking or feeling. And of course, as the mom, we think we're supposed to fix things. We found out you can't do that either. We have to show them how their own thinking works so they can understand their own life. It's your own mind and your own life, and it's the only thing you're actually responsible for.
Well, I love the statement, under what breaks the loop, seeing temporary change nature of stressful feelings. They're
Mhm.
not going to last forever. So, I mean, just as an example, Teresa, how long does anxiety last?
Well, if you look at the textbooks, about 3 minutes is about how long adrenaline stays active in your system. If you can sit long enough to let it go away, you will notice about that long. But what we do is we feel that anxiety, and then people get afraid of the anxiety and they keep reactivating the system because you're still under threat. And one of the things I learned that if, especially with that feeling at night, like if you wake up with that feeling of stress or anxiety and you can't go back to sleep, most people lay there and try to go back to sleep. But if you actually get up and move, you're telling your brain by your movement, your body's movement, that it's safe, that you're taking care of whatever this feeling is. And a lot of people say that they're able to go back to sleep just by responding to that feeling that they're having. And what happens? The natural state of resilience returns because once you wait for the physiology to settle down, it actually helps us to return to that sense of peace and less stress.
Well, we learned a most interesting shortcut this week. You want to tell them about repetitive tasks, Teresa?
So I don't know if any of you know, but my daughter has uh, she had eye injections, and she has gotten to where she's having health anxiety and overthinking about losing her eyesight in spite of the fact that she has 20/20 vision. And so she's, like having these panic attacks every time she notices something in her eyes. So I was like, is this a common thing? Because I thought it has to be a common thing. Well, it's an actual known phenomenon that people who have eye problems begin to focus on their eyes, and your brain goes, oh, we're focusing on our eyes, there must be something wrong. So you're constantly in that little feedback loop. And so her health anxiety was going up and up and up and up, and I was like, well, how do you stop this? So the way to interrupt that cycle is repetitive tasks such as cutting vegetables, folding laundry. Anything that's repetitive lets your mind settle down long enough for you to get out of that loop. And the first night that she did that, she slept all night. And I did not know that that was even a thing.
So now we can prescribe do the dishes.
Yes, do the dishes, dust, vacuum, anything that, you know, I actually think that might be one of the reasons why some people have that compulsion because it's soothing and it helps people. Yeah, Carol.
One of the things that I came across was counting by set numbers. And so I
Hmm.
did like threes or sevens, not twos, fives, because those are easy to
Hmm.
shift out of an emotional, like when I was feeling overwhelmed emotionally and I
Hmm.
needed to still have some clarity. And so I would start counting, and then it would flip out of that into, okay, wait a minute, we got it. So,
Yeah, yeah. That's a great one. I hadn't thought of numbers. I'll tell her about numbers because health anxiety is a real thing. The more you focus on it, the more stressed you get. And if you're dealing with something with your health, especially healing a wound or something, it matters how much stress you're having. And my daughter is an incredible person for everything that she's been going through. And she has told me I can share, which is why I'm even talking about it. She's like, I don't care if you tell people. I even invited her to come talk to us once and tell her own story because she realized when she finally made the connection between her anxiety and her experience of getting her injections or the effects on her blood sugar was astounding. And I still remember we were driving in the car halfway between the eye appointment and home, and she goes, "Oh my gosh." And I said, "What?" She goes, "I just realized how my thinking is affecting everything today." And when she got home, her blood sugar was 99.
Wow.
That was her first normal blood sugar for a long time. Since then, maybe not quite a year, she is now her A1C is 6.3, which is
Oh my goodness.
technically
For
pre-diabetic
for her,
for her.
fabulous.
Yeah, well, down from 14.7 a couple of years ago when things were not very good.
Wow.
And so, that and she has lost 20 pounds since December just by watching what she eats. And she said, it's true. I can eat anything I want if I do portion control, period. And her blood sugar will stay pretty stable. And but she said, Mom, it's more than that. I can't really explain it, but I know when I'm hurting myself with my thinking and I stop doing it. I was, well, how do you do that? She goes, well, it's not always easy, but she does. She's a really good role model for me because of everything that she's been through. Any of us who have a family member or family members who are going through any kind of crisis, doesn't have to be a health crisis or a challenge. We all know it's a family affair. It's not just about the one person. We all have feelings about what's going on and what's happening and what it means for us. But it has been a really wonderful dynamic to have a daughter who is willing to share her experience with me. And then the one thing she said, she goes, Mom, none of this is your fault and none of it's my fault. We're just going to live. And she said, I'm Jennifer. I might have diabetes, but I'm Jennifer. I don't want you to see me as anything else. It was a really good reminder that we are human beings first, and her body knows what to do, and she's supporting it. And I don't think any of us can do anything more than that.
Well, and I just remember it seemed like the biggest breakthrough, Teresa, when she said that she could actually feel the difference in her body.
Yes.
Can you talk a little
I
more?
could see the difference. As soon as she saw it, I could feel it. That informed knowing, like as soon as she saw it, she goes, huh. And I went, oh my gosh, she got it. She made the connection. No one can make that connection for you, especially with your own body, of how your thinking directly impacts, in her case, her blood sugar, but other things too. And I've watched her blossom in ways that I didn't know people did, about acceptance of what's happening to your body and the joy that she has and the way that she interacts with people. And even when she's having a really bad day, she still has a sense, in my sense, of peacefulness of knowing that it will pass. And she's learned also to take a nap when she needs to, instead of the judgment. She goes, well, she used to say, I'm staying up. I don't care if I'm tired. I don't want to wake up in the middle of the night. Well, it turned out if she takes an hour nap, she still can go to sleep at night and her body is healing faster. So,
Wow. Well, I just remember what a huge, it was a dividing line for her that she could
wow.
actually feel in her body. And it reminds me of the three tenets of holistic nursing, the first of which is to take care of the patient as a whole, body, mind, and spirit. The second is alternative modalities as appropriate, and they're not always appropriate. But the third, oh, I just love the third. The third is take care of the nurse first. And that really is where we blossom and where we see ourselves as holistic nurses um, leading the way for the entire profession in caring for ourselves. Historically, that has not been the case for nurses. And finally, um, this will be our 48th celebration of annual conference. And yeah, we've been around for 48 years, but we're only just really realizing the tip of the iceberg on self-care and the importance of it and having each other's backs. The I know one of the faculty members was speaking about how she was so open to letting her students know that she loved the students, but she wasn't able to feel the same level of affection for her colleagues, or she wasn't able to articulate the same level of affection for her colleagues. But if we truly are going to have each other's backs, which nurses always have had each other's backs, we have to be our own example for the institutions where we work so they can feel the importance of having the nurses back.
Well, and I think too, that's where that spectrum comes in, where you do that check-in with yourself, like where am I? Where am I on this? And knowing that thoughts and feelings are temporary, just like clouds in the sky. Sometimes you're under the cloud and sometimes you're not. And knowing that the clouds always move gives us an opportunity to not take ourselves and our lives so seriously sometimes. You know, it might look really important in the moment, and then later on you're like, well, it wasn't really what I thought it was. And so give ourselves some grace, you know, and feel the ease that can happen just by knowing that thoughts and feelings shift all the time. They never stay the same. It's impossible.
Yeah, 10 years from now, I'm sure 98% of what we worry about is going to be not relevant.
Well, you know, I recently, how many of you have read that book, Love, Medicine, and Miracles by Bernie Siegel?
Yeah.
Have you guys read that book? So he's 93 years old now, and his book is online and he reads it. It's free on YouTube to listen to it. So I listened to it again. That was the first book I read about healing and healthcare when I graduated in 1993. So probably that last semester I read that book. And as I listened, I remembered a story in the book about a woman who had atrial fibrillation and thought she was going to die and did. And everybody was like, well, isn't that a shame? You know, atrial fib is, you know, treatable. And the guy in the next room, they were standing over him and, you know, he was very, very sick and they weren't quite sure if he was going to make it. And the doctor leans over and he says, well, he's got a gallop. And a couple of days later, the guy got better and he goes, what do you think made the difference? And he said, well, he said, I heard you say I have a galloping heart. And he goes, well, horses gallop and they're strong as a horse. I must be fine. And he got better. And in all of his work, he talks about the power of belief and the thoughts that we have that actually begin healing before any treatment has happened. How do we account for that? And he said it's love. When he decided to make his patients call him by his first name, and he pushed his desk against the wall and sat with people and loved them, they started healing before he ever prescribed a treatment. And he said even he would test his theory about it, and when he would say things to people even under anesthesia. He had a big guy one time, and the surgery was a little bit difficult, and the patient's heart rate was 130. And he said, I was calling him Jimmy. Jimmy, everything's fine. You're a big guy. It's just a little bit difficult. I need your heart rate to be 83. And he said within a few minutes, his heart rate was 83, and it stayed there the whole time. And he's got stories after stories after stories about how thought impacts our health and lived experience, even through serious illnesses such as cancer and other stuff.
Well, this may be a good time to just ask if our audience has questions or would like to make comments or just curiosities or holdouts.
Yeah.
Does what we've been talking about make sense?
This is Nikki calling from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Can y'all
Yeah.
hear me okay? I'm in the car.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So I love when you were talking about repetitive movements and calming anxiety because
Uh-oh, you're just
okay. I'm sorry. Hold on. Is that better?
yeah, now we can
Okay.
hear you.
Okay, I took it off a speaker. I have the phone to my ear. So
Yeah.
last fall, I was going through a transition in my life and I went part-time and, everything would be good, but my anxiety just tailspinned. And it was that feedback loop. And I do find that maybe doing yard work or mowing the grass or cooking a meal, it does help to calm that anxiety because you don't think about the anxiety. You think about what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think, that's a great thought when we think about self-care and what can we do for ourselves, because self-care is not selfish. If you don't
No.
show up for yourself, who can you show up for?
Yeah. Not won't be showing up for very long, will you?
Right. Right.
That's true. That's
I
true.
showed up to the ERs where I showed up.
Yeah. Oh. Oh.
I was
So
like, oh, something's wrong and I need help.
right, right. And so was anything wrong, or was it just anxiety or stress?
Well, in a nutshell, I was feeling anxious and my doctor increased my medication, and that was not a good idea. That really put me in a tailspin when I was already anxious and the medication was so high I couldn't sleep, I couldn't function. It was bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
That as a nurse, I knew enough to know I needed help.
Right.
So, yes.
Well, there was your wisdom showing up, right?
Yes.
Because how many times have we met people who are like, I'm just going to wait it out. I'll just wait till it goes away, right? So good for you for going and listening to that intuition and said,
Yes.
nope, we're going.
Something's wrong. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and one of our faculty members is Dr. Bill Pevitt. He's a psychiatrist, and I know that he's told us many times that for him, it's necessary to use chemicals to help people slow down and balance out so they can listen and they can hear their own thoughts. So we're not saying never, never, but it has to be a balance. And
Yes.
he has a beautiful way of talking about it. He says, we're never broken and nothing is lacking. Wow, if we just could take that to heart and each of us individually know that, the truth of that, we are never broken. We can be going through some hard times, but we're never broken and we are never lacking. But it doesn't always look that way. And so it's a little hard for us to reconcile ourselves, but that is the truth. We are never broken and there is nothing lacking. Even in our last days, you know how so many personal relationships are healed at the end of life. It's always such a joy to be able to see that. And there's never a time when we've been lacking. We're never broken.
I felt broken plenty of times. It wasn't really true, you know. I think that story that we tell ourselves, it's really interesting to see how sometimes I was talking to somebody, oh, it's been a little while now, and she said, I found myself worrying about other people. It wasn't even my problem. It wasn't even a family member. And she said, I was walking in the park with my husband and I suddenly realized, why am I worrying about it? I can't even do anything about it. She said, all of a sudden, I was in a whole different world. She said, the sun looked brighter, the birds sound better. And I think when we notice that, if you pay attention to it for like the next few days and notice how when your thoughts shift, how your mood shifts, we start to see how much control we actually do have over the way that we show up. And it's one of those places, I think, where it doesn't look to be true, but we do get to decide. You're on mute, Lynn.
Yeah, well, I remember when I completed my master's degree and did my defended my thesis. My goodness, you're absolutely right, Teresa. The grass is green and the sky is blue. You know, I've been thinking and thinking and thinking about my research and my faculty and defending my thesis and on and on. And I just walked out of there and oh my goodness, it was, you know, everything just lifted. And I got on a plane and went to Europe.
Oh, it was quick. You're like, okay, I did it. Bye. You know, that's hilarious. You know, you think about, okay, I'm coming up to this wall, if you will. I think we all feel that. Like, am I going to make it? Is it going to happen? All this work I put in. Either you were or you weren't. There was nothing that would have really happened either way. And I think that's one of the places where it was actually quite shocking to me to realize how much flexibility we have in education and in nursing, where it looks like everything is already, you know, there's rules and protocols and, you know, certain criteria you have to meet for education. That's not actually where we live. We live in the feeling of our thinking about all that stuff. You know, we put a lot of effort onto it and a lot of meaning to it. But in the end, no matter what happens, we're still going to be here. We're still going to be alive. I did when I noticed that education was much more about flexibility and changing the way you teach or changing the way you talk about things or changing the subjects even to meet the needs of people, that became more like an art form. It was a lot more fun. But as growing up, I always thought it was kind of set in stone. So I thought that was kind of funny to see that, oh no, we're all making it up. We're making up life as we go right now.
As evidenced by our political environment. Yes, absolutely.
But we all get to decide.
I'm going to put in the chat a little link to something that Teresa and I are doing. It's a special event. It's a full day in 5 hours coming up on Saturday the 11th. And I'll just put in the registration link, and it is a code that you'll want to use to get a free ticket, and that code is ready.
And you can share it with anyone you want. We really just want to bring nurses together and have a conversation about the work that we're doing and build a community of nurses who love holistic nursing and who, want to love and support each other.
I can probably send that out to you. I think we've got a flyer, don't we, Teresa, that
I
I
think
can
so.
forward?
Yeah, I think so.
That would have that. And one of my friends said she had printed out the flyer and took it to her education director at her hospital. So
Wonderful.
all of the nurses could be invited to come. And
Mhm.
since it's a free ticket, and yeah, no reason not to.
Mhm. Well,
Oh,
Deanne,
yeah.
welcome.
Well, hi, Deanne. What time zone are you calling in from, Deanne?
Hi, I'm sorry. I just saw the email and I just popped in. So
Great, great. Are you Central Time?
I am San Antonio.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Well, maybe Teresa, you could just give us a thumbnail sketch of what'll be coming up on the 11th. I'm going to put the link in again so Deanne can have it, and she's certainly welcome to share it with other nurses as well. We're planning to do a 1 day conference. It's just 5 hours, but it's on Saturday, so we're calling it a 1 day event. And the title of which is From Burnout to Breakthrough. So, why did you choose that title, Teresa?
Well, because I think, number one, I think nurses are tired of the word burnout. I think we're ready for a breakthrough. And I think we're ready for what's next. In, you know, we've all been through, some trying times and stuff like that, but we really do, in my view, the people I've been talking to, we're not done. Nurses are resilient. We want to do more and, you know, bring new life to ourselves and our profession. And that's what this event is about. Is the 1 day event is really about learning why burnout isn't a personal failure. It's not personal. We just have this feeling of need to do something different in a system that doesn't always support us. And so, it's just perfect for you if you feel called to more deeper work or you want more meaningful patient conversations. And nursing is expanding. Like Lynn was saying earlier, you know, uh, it wasn't Jackie, it was Peggy Chin said that, I forgot what she said, Lynn.
If you want to be a nurse, you can work in a hospital. If you want to do nursing, you may have to leave the hospital and
Yeah.
work in a different environment.
Yeah. And so this is a conversation about nurse coaching and how we think that can support the next evolution of nursing, especially as holistic nurses. Um, Nurses are moving out into all kinds of areas, including entrepreneurship, including owning their own businesses. They're collaborating together to create new ways to create health and well-being within their communities and across the nation. A couple of young ladies are doing, if you've heard of them, the modern nurses are creating a movement and they're going to major cities, Anchorage, Alaska, Orlando, Florida, Houston in September or in August. And it's just nurses getting together, holistic nurses getting together, sharing about what they're doing in the world of entrepreneurship, self-care, how they're bringing together teams in the hospitals. And they're just celebrating each other. So it's really a wonderful time to be a nurse as we move in and around and through what nursing has traditionally been to what the next possibilities can be, and especially with AI and simulation labs and how people are using AI to help people with their health and well-being. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, so the title is from burnout to breakthrough, but we're not really going to be talking about burnout much. That's just a starting place.
Yeah, it's more about what can we do next and why does it matter? So, and obviously if any of you have exciting things that you're doing, we want to hear about it because we want to celebrate you for what you're bringing to the world and how we're showing up together. And I think it's really important to acknowledge each other and what we are doing.
So, Deanne, the link is for a free ticket to the one-day event on April 11th. And it is free, but you have to use the code READY, READY. And feel free to share with any of your nursing colleagues that you might like to invite. We'd love to have them.
Yeah, you can print off the flyer and pass it around, whatever you want to do. We just really want to bring as many nurses together as we can for a new conversation. I think that's it for me. Any comments or thoughts? Was any of this helpful for you? Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
It's great to see that y'all are doing things to really help and things differently of, the long-term traditional get in, but making sure people because certain self-care in this, you got to take care of yourself first. When you're in the airplane, you put your oxygen mask on first.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here. Carol, were you starting to say something? No. I thought I saw, I guess maybe you froze for a second. So
Yeah, I know when the holistic nurses wrote their scope and standards of practice, they the American Nurses Association picked it up and they wrote their own scope and standards of practice. Well, it looked a whole lot like the holistic nurses scope and standard of practice. And the ANA, American Nurses Association, went on to let us all know that all nurses are holistic, which is a wonderful thought and is actually one of the goals of the Holistic Nursing Association. But I think we have a bit of a long ways to go yet in regard to that.
but we're here now. All right. Well, it was wonderful spending time with you tonight. And Lynn or Deanne, Lynn needs the emails, I think.
Yeah, Deanne, if you can put your email in the
Yeah.
chat, that would be great.
Yeah.
We've got, I'm thinking that we'll be back at the end of April, probably on the 28th. Things are really, really moving and changing fast. So we're not planning too far ahead at the moment, except to say that Teresa and I have been accepted to speak at the International Council of Nurses. And that is going to be in Nashville at the end of September, well, the middle of September. And it's so special because they have a nurse practitioner part that is meeting only for the 14th year. And as a matter of fact, the International Council of Nurses has not been back to the USA in 25 years, and we get to speak.
Wow,
I didn't
that
realize
is
it had been that long.
incredible.
It
Oh
is.
my
Amazing.
It is.
gosh.
Yeah. Really, really fun. The 14th through the 17th of September. We'll be in Nashville. We may even take in the Grand Ole Opry if Teresa likes country music.
I love
That's
country.
fun.
I like all music. And I'm a little eclectic. And plus, who wouldn't want to go there if you're in Nashville, right?
It would be fun.
Yeah.
Last minute questions, anybody?
No.
Okay.
I'll just say, I know I just popped in here randomly because I was in an old email and it was in my inbox, and I was like, I wonder if they're still meeting. But yeah, thank you for this, and thank you for the offering that's coming up. Sorry, it's a little bit dark in here, but I'm actually in my favorite place when I'm overstimulated, which is under my desk. So,
Okay.
so what you're talking about is much needed, not just for our communities, but for nurses as well. So thank you very much.
Can you just give her a thumbnail wrap on well, how did we describe it? Calming
How to
influences.
interrupt that stress response.
Yes.
So Deanne, I told a little story earlier about that feeling of stress. My daughter had a lot of health anxiety about her eyes. And one of the ways that interrupts that pattern is repetitive activities, chopping vegetables, chopping fruit, folding clothes, doing dishes,
Okay.
and mowing the grass. Anything that's just kind of repetitive that engages your body a little bit will interrupt that
Jean Gilstrap or Jean Gilstrap.
will interrupt that stress cycle. So it's a known phenomenon, especially in health anxiety. I did not know that. So
Did not know that either. Thank you. And I actually do like folding clothes too. I do find it really calming. So,
well, there you go.
So
There
yeah,
you
thank you
go.
for sharing that. I will
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. You'll have to let us know if it worked for you.
I will.
When
Thank you.
when my daughter did it, she chopped up all the fruit in her house, and she said she went to bed and she slept like a baby. I was like,
Mm,
okay, if it works, it works.
yes. Thank
I
you.
had no idea about that. So sleep well.
I
All
will.
right,
Thanks.
ladies. Have a good night.
All right, have a good night. Bye
You
bye.
too. Bye bye.